Assalamualaikum and good morning. So today I will be discussing about the ISO 15819. It is one of the quality management system that have been used widely in the laboratory diagnostic. So the history of ISO 15819, it is developed by representatives from 33 different countries, embraced in total or in part by medical laboratories in more than 55 countries. It is written consistent with internationally accepted precepts of quality management, consistent with the common practices accepted by medical laboratories, consistent with accreditation body requirements for quality everywhere in the world, and the ISO requires regular review and, if appropriate, refreshment every 5 years. So that's why whoever involved in the ISO 15189 will find the different version of the ISO 15189, the newest version of ISO 15189 from time to time. So in order to implementing ISO 15189, we need these are the few criteria. First is the commitment. The first commitment must come from the management and also from the employee. So management must have give commitment in terms of the cost and teamwork with the employee. Yeah? Meaning that they should prepare the cost of implementing the ISO 159, such as the fees of accreditation, of the accreditation process, and management also must have a good teamwork with the employee, meaning that if there is something problem occurs in the below, in the below part, so management must listen and take action together with the employee how to improve the any problem that happen. And also the lab should develop the steering team which understand the quality essential system contained in the ISO 15189 and execute the criteria that needed in that QMS, and they should develop the implementation plan, maybe the Gantt chart, when to start the ISO and when to go for the accreditation. And also, the second criteria is to prepare the laboratory, meaning that one of the activity is the lab should perform gap analysis and build the documents that related and how to manage the document. Okay, I want to explain more about the gap analysis. It is an analysis which compare the quality essential system that contained in the ISO 15189 and how much the laboratory have executed that QSE, yeah, the quality system essential. So from this gap analysis, they know how much they have ready and how much they have implemented the quality management system and whether they are ready or not for the accreditation. And finally, when they are ready, they have implemented most of the quality system essential in the ISO 149. They can they can go for the accreditation. Usually, accreditation is done using the external audit, and after they get the accreditation, the lab should commit to the standard uh, in every time. Okay. So why accreditation is needed? Because quality without accreditation is rarely worked. It is very difficult to sustain even over the short term, the commitment and effort required without external validation and support. And remember, 75% of organizations commit to just ISO 151, just commit to ISO 9001, which emphasize on the management only, fail to maintain their quality management system. And also the ISO 1.9, it not only contain the management but it also contain the technical criteria. So it is much more challenging to implement the ISO 15189 compared to ISO 9001. That's why the accreditation is needed in ISO 15189. So, in order to implement, first you must understand the document of ISO 15189. In the document, I want to point out there's term in the standard that you should that you should understand clearly. Okay, one of it is shall. Shall meaning must. So whenever you find the word shall and uh, followed by the criteria in it, meaning that you must follow that statement. Yeah, you must execute what the criteria that contained in the SO. If you find the term may, should, or can, it is recommended that, meaning that it is not requirement but should be considered. Hmm? And if you find the term to the extent possible, meaning that requirement would apply unless there is an extenuating circumstances. Example, overriding national regulation which would take priority. So, in order to understand the document, you need to learn and learn always, and you need to learn more. So, you can do so by share experience with other lab that have been implement the SO 1519, attending the conference, courses, or you can discuss with the colleagues, yeah, or with other colleagues from the different labs, or maybe you can appoint consultant and many other ways. So this is the picture of the journey of ISO 15189. Please bear in mind, and it is not a smooth journey. It is full of challenges. I'm sure whoever have been involved in the ISO 15189 have facing many difficulties in order to execute or to implement this ISO. Okay, so first we go to the document, because document is the main is uh, one of the important criteria in the ISO 15189. So for this contact MS, it has four kind of hierarchy of documents, starting from quality manual, quality system procedures, scope and organization chart, standing operating procedures, which is whoever involved in this QMS will find this more, and also last but not least, forms, format, and records, yeah, and many records that related with the ISO 15189. So I will explain more about the documents hierarchy. We go first with the quality manual. So for quality manual, it contains management or organization policy to achieve the quality system essential that contained in the ISO 15189. It also contains the objective quality, example, key performance index, which I have been discussed in previous lecture, and scope of tests that being done or that included in the accreditation by the lab diagnostic. Second is the procedures. It contains general standard process or procedures on how to achieve the quality system essential. And this procedure can be used between different units in the lab diagnostic, meaning that the procedures can be used maybe for chemical pathology, hematology, and histo. Can use the same procedure. And third, but and we find more, is standard operating manual. It contains step by step how to do the process or work. It is the work instruction and usually specific for a unit or section, meaning that it cannot be shared between different units. this standard operating manual is specifically for chemical pathology, specific for hemato, and any other units that in the that available in the lab diagnostic. So this is some of the criteria in the document control. Please read it by yourself. Yeah, this is the criteria that should be executed by the lab diagnostic, and this is the continuation of the document control. Okay, the document control is under management requirement or under the clause number 4, yeah. And there are many other management requirement that contained in the ISO 15819. However, I just discussed about the document control because when you handle the lab, you will be dealing with the document control more rather than other quality essential system that contain in the management requirement. And now we will go to the technical requirements, which is it is number 5, and there are 10 technical requirements in the ISO, the 10 quality system essential. It include personal, accommodation and environmental condition, lab equipment, reagent and consumables, pre-examination process, examination processes, ensuring quality of examination results, post-examination processes, reporting of results, release of results, and lab information system. So we go the 5.1 personal. Yeah? For personal 5.1 clause 5.1, it have several other quality system essential, and it first started with the general, which is the lab should have procedure how to manage the staff and maintain related records. And under clause 5.1.2, the lab should have the personal qualification, and this personal qualification should appropriate with the job description, meaning that if you have the medical lab technologist, then the qualification that medical lab technologist should have the appropriate qualification. If you have the scientific officer and also doctors, uh, the doctor, you should have that person should have the qualified, the appropriate qualification to do the job. And then the person require qualification should be record. And then the lab should have a job description. Job description, it is the description of work need to be done by personnel in the lab. Yeah? And then it also should have the document for orientation program for new staff. So this orientation program should have the procedure, and any program of orientation should be recorded. Under the training, also it stated the training should area the quality management system, related work process and procedure, meaning that whatever test done in the lab diagnostic should be trained. Lab information system, if the lab diagnostic use lab information system, I'm sure most of you, most of the lab use the lab information system. And also it should include the health and safety, including prevention and contingency plan, ethics such as the staff should not the staff should not give the result, uh, should keep so for ethics, meaning example for ethics, meaning that the staff should have ethics such as the patient's result cannot be simply shown to any other person which not related to the patient. In fact, the staff in the lab should give the result only to the customer, which is doctor, not to the patient itself. Only doctor can give the result to the patient. So and also there is training which cover the confidentiality of patient's information. So the training can be such as training, discussion, CME, seminar, and workshop, and they should determine how many hour training needed in the procedure. And also it is one of the quality objective. It can be one of the quality objective for the lab. Example, every staff should get 42-hour training every year, and all this training must be recorded. And there should be competency assessment which cover the training area. The competency assessment should determine the frequency of assessment and procedure, whether the assessment should be done for every month, for every 6 months, yearly, and many more should be decided and implement. And some frequency stated in the quality system essential, such as for the histology test, it is stated in the quality essential system, which is the doctor do the uh, must read the slide yearly, maybe 1,000 slides. It is already stated, and those quality must be followed by the doctor. And also the lab need to determine the criteria of compliance, how to do the marking or any other method of, to do the compliance, and they should keep the record as evidence. The assessment method can be done either by direct observation, review of work records, yeah, maintenance, such as maintenance or report, problem solving question, and can be done such as using the examination. Other criteria under personnel, there should be a review of staff performance. Reviews should meet the quality of service requirement and should cover the CME and professional development. So the lab should determine how many CME and professional development should be done on each personnel in the lab, and should keep the evidence record. And for the last criteria under the personnel, they should be recorded for all above criteria that I have mentioned before, plus the certification or license related, example, doctor license, previous work experience, any reports or accidents or occupational hazard, and immunization status of the staff. Okay, now under accommodation and environmental condition, which is clause 5.2, it stated that laboratory and office should provide suitable environment for work, meaning that it has controlled access to area affecting quality of examination. The access to lab and related office should be controlled. Yeah, and medical information, patient sample, lab resources safeguarded from unauthorized access. Facilities for examination allow for correct performance of examination, meaning that the instrument or any apparatus that used in the lab diagnostic should support in giving the correct result. Appropriate communication system within the lab, meaning that the management and the employees in the lab diagnostic should have a good and appropriate communication between them. And the safety facilities provided and functionally monitored. The safety facilities is such as eye wash, personal protective equipment, safety kit, and many more. Okay, under clause 5.2.3, it detail about the facilities. Storage space for items that could affect the quality of examination result. The example of storage space is the storage for samples, documents, records, results, consumable, reagent, and chemical, etc. that are listed. Clinical samples and material for its testing, such as I have mentioned before this, reagents and chemical, should store in manner to prevent cross-contamination. And please bear in mind that clinical sample and material cannot be stored in the same place. So, same place. Yeah. So they need the separation place to prevent the cross-contamination. And it should have a proper storage for dangerous material. So it is should appropriate storage and disposable facilities follows certain requirements. And under clause 5.3.4, for staff facilities, the lab shall provide washroom, drinking water, PPE storage, and clothing for the staff. And optional shall have a meeting room, study area, and rest area for the employee. Okay, under clause 5.2.5, patient sample collection facilities. The lab shall have separate reception and collection area, and facilities provided not affecting the examination quality. First aid kit must always be updated, and the lab shall consider the access for disabled people, toilet, and facility for accompanying person. Under clause 5.2.6, facility maintenance and environmental condition, the lab area should maintain for reliable condition and should keep it clean. So we should execute the 5S, if you have heard about the 5S, and shall monitor, control, and record environmental condition that might affect the examination quality and staff safety, such as the lab shall monitor and control the temperature of the room, yeah, the light, sterility, dust, and many more. But usually the one that we monitor and control is the temperature of the room and also the temperature of the refrigerator. But the refrigerator is under equipment, and also should have separation for hazard test, and also the test that affected if no separation. The example of this kind of test may be the RNA and DNA work. So how to implement the this criteria is to do the 5S and do many of records. So whatever activity you done in order to execute or implement that kind of criteria or quality system essential, you need to record. So how many record need to be keep so far? Is it a lot or just a little? What is your opinion? Now we go on the next clause 5.3, lab equipment, reagent, and consumables. Under clause 5.3.1.1, they should have documented procedure for selection and purchasing and management of this item. Acceptance testing shall verify open installation and before use, prove complies to examination requirement, and it should be operated by trained and authorized staff. So they should have SOP for this criteria and should have any documents or records that are related, you know, and shall have procedure for safe handling, transport, and storage to prevent contamination and deterioration of the equipment, reagent, and consumable. Okay, under clause 5.3.1.4, equipment calibration and methodological traceability, there should be documented procedure for calibration that affect examination of results. Calibration, usually the calibration include here is the calibration of the test, and it should cover the condition of use and manufacture instruction, which is record methodological traceability by that traceability to reference material or reference procedure. This information we can get from the manufacturer. Should have a procedure for verify accuracy done by manufacturer, or we can do it by ourselves. And this one I will cover in my next lecture. Record calibration status and date given by the manufacturer, where calibration gives rise to a set of correction factors. The previous calibration factors are correctly updated. Yeah, this one should be monitored and recorded. Safeguarded to prevent adjustment or tampering. Usually this one can happen when the manufacturer do the predict maintenance on the machine, when they adjust the setting of the machine, or when we adjust the setting of the analyzer. So we need to have document to prevent from this adjustment happen without we noticing it. So where we can get this information, it is from the manufacturer manual instruction. Okay, next under clause 5.3.1.5, equipment maintenance and repair, there should be document program for periodic preventive maintenance, which at least follow the manufacturer requirement. The equipment should maintain in safe environment. The defect equipment should be labeled, not to be used, decontaminate before service, and after the repair should meet the acceptance criteria before to approve it. And same also with the equipment that's set outside should be approved to meet acceptance criteria. And under for clause 5.3.1.6, any adverse incidents should be investigated, report to authorities and manufacturer. For clause 5.3.1.7, it stated the equipment records. So at least it should have this criteria: the equipment records, identity or unit, manufacturer, model, serial number, and many more. You can read it by yourself. Should also include the manufacturer instruction, which is covered in the standard operating procedure. Should have the performance report, yeah, of the equipment, plus with the test include in it, which I cover in the next lecture with the verification. And also the equipment should cover the maintenance of the equipment, PPM, damage and service that happen to the equipment. So how to implement the criteria under the equipment should be need lots and lots of records, and don't miss to monitor, especially for the PPM. Maybe you need to develop the Gantt chart for you to monitor the instrument and PPM if necessary. Okay, under criteria ISO, clause 5.3.2, reagent and consumables, there should be procedure for reception, and storage, yeah, acceptance testing prior use, inventory management, and adverse report. All these procedure which related to the reagent consumable should be built by the lab, and the criteria, the detail of the procedure you can read by yourself. And the reagent and consumable shall have the records of which covered in the SOP and the operating procedure consists of identification of the reagent and consumable, manufacturer name and lot number, manufacturer instruction used, and any other info if necessary. Now we go to the pre-examination process under clause 5. Okay, under clause 5.4 pre-examination process, there should be procedure and or SOP, the information for patient and users, request form, primary sample collection and handling, which cover instruction for pre-collection and instruction collection, sample transportation, pre-examination handling, preparation and storage. Under clause 5.4.2, it details more about information for patient and users. So this information usually contain the tests that being offered by the lab, which can access by the customers such as doctors and nurse. And this information should contain uh, these criteria such as lab location, test done in-house, yeah, test report outside, test name, sample type, container, and many more. I hope that you can read it one by one by yourself and please remember it. Yeah, the acceptance, rejection criteria, and working hours. So usually the lab will make this information in in term of a handbook or maybe electronic procedure or electronic document, which is can be accessed by the customer, such as doctors and nurse. So they can use this information for them to collect the patient sample, so that this is to avoid them from giving the wrong sample or from the collecting sample wrongly. And this information need to do interval or review, and this interval review need to be documented. Under clause 5.4.3, it detail about the request form information. So this request form can be could be in hard copy or in electronic. However, the information of it should consist patient identification, such as MRN or a name and identification, passport number, yeah, IC number, gender, date of birth, and many more. So I hope that you can read it by yourself. It stated the information should be contained in the request form. Okay, under clause 5.4.4, it stated about the primary sample collection and handling. So the lab shall have procedure or SOP for primary sample collection and handling, the instruction for pre-collection, instruction and instruction for collection, and some or most of the information are in the handbook, which can be accessed by the customer. Under 5.4.5, it stated about the sample transportation. So the lab shall have procedure or SOP for sample transportation and how to monitor the transportation, such as is it within time frame, how about the temperature, the sample integrity should intact, the carrier should in good condition, and it is safe to the public. And some of the information also can be accessed in the handbook. Under clause 5.4.6, sample reception, lab shall have procedure or SOP for workflow process, traceability such as the traceability of sample to patient and the adequate that traceable to the primary sample, and also should cover the procedures should cover the acceptance and rejection process on problematic sample and should noted in the results, and should monitor the KPI, the percentage of sample rejection. Under clause 5.4.7, it stated about the pre-examination handling, preparation and storage. So this lab shall have procedure or SOP to secure patient sample from damage or loss during above process, from this sample reception process, and set time for additional limit. So meaning that when the doctor want to add the test from the sample that have been received in the lab, so the lab shall set the time limit to add the test. This one we can refer to the uh, manufacturer instruction or test instruction, test stability. Yeah. Okay, under 5.5 examination processes CAUSA, 5.5.1 it define the selection, verification and validation of examination process. So the lab should select the validated examination. Therefore, the lab only just need to do the verification, and for the non-standard method or in-house method and modified standard method that use outside the scope, the lab need to do the validation to the test itself. So there should be procedure for verification and validation process. Under clause 5.5.2, it stated about the biological reference intervals, or short name is reference range. Yeah, reference range of the test. So lab shall define, document and inform to users about the reference range of its test, of the test that it offer. So any changes to the reference range need to inform to the users or client, and if there's any change in the examination procedure that could lead change into the result production, so the lab need to review the reference range. Okay, under clause 5.5.3, it stated about the documentation of examination procedures, or the test that being done in the lab. So they should have standard operating procedure for the test that contain all these criteria. So I hope that you can read it by yourself. This is continuation of the um, content of the content of the test. So there's so many information that need to be contained into the SOP of the test. So where to find it? Yeah. Usually we can find from the manufacturer manual or insert kit of the test or reagent. Under clause 5.6, it stated or described about the ensuring quality of examination results. It stated that quality control should be record of material and usage, and it should cover the QC data, should have record of the QC data and the QC performance, record of the interlab comparison and the activity, meaning that the lab should participate or should execute the EQA through the participation. Yeah, lab should have a proof of participation in EQA, or use the alternative method such as interlab comparison, QC method interlab comparison, use the certified reference material and previous sample interlab comparison, and the analysis it stated should same as sample patient, and it also have the further explanation on the specific criteria. If you want to know, actually the ISO15819 document, they have specific criteria that describe more about certain area. So for quality examination, it have its own specific criteria. And for the implementation, the lab should have procedure and SOP how to do the quality control, yeah, in the lab, and they should keep the report of IQC or EQA performance, action when the QC rule violated and review and discuss with the staff, especially on the EQA. Clause 5.7 is stated about the post-examination process. So the lab shall have a procedure and SOP and should follow it about the result review, meaning that the review should be done by authorized personnel and it should have record and updated the authorized personnel which being involved in the result reviewing and should have evidence of result review and record. Usually it record in the result report and should have the procedure SOP for the storage of the patient sample after the test is done, and the sample patient should be able to trace back and should the lab should determine how many time that need to keep the sample and should have a procedure how to dispose the patient specimen in safe method. Okay, under clause 5.8, it stated about the reporting of result. So the reporting of result shall contain all these criteria such as patient identification, patient location, and many more. I hope that you can read it by yourself. And I want to explain more about the page number. So the result should have a page number to total number, such as if the result have 3 pages, so the page number should have 1 per 3, 2 per 3, and 3 per 3. And same also if the result have 5 pages. And if there is other comment, the necessary comment, it should be stated in the result, such as sampling site, sample quality, and whether if the test done by the non-standard method, usually that involved in the research, should also noted in the test result. So under clause 5.9, it mentioned about release of result. So the lab should have a procedure or SOP for the workflow of releasing result, which include notified for sample quality. Maybe the sample is good, or maybe the sample have lice, yeah, lice, Icarus, or leucemic. So it should noted in the result. If there is critical result, then it should be recorded, yeah, and this critical result actually need to be informed to the user, the doctor, as soon as possible. So when we do the to notify, when we notify the doctor, we should record it, and it is actually one of the KPI in the lab that should be maintained, yeah? Should be monitored and maintained. And interim report followed with a final report should have procedure of it, and oral report followed with written should be report also. Okay, for automated reporting, usually this one available when the lab use the lab information system. Usually, most of the lab nowadays use the lab information system. So the reporting is done automatically. So they should have a procedure that define, validated, and understood on the automatic reporting, such as if we want to use the data check, and this automated reporting need to be validated. Is it happen accordingly to as we state, or if is there any error during the automated report? Uh, should be processed if there is should indicate any interference, yeah, if so should be noted in the automated report. And if there need any warning from instrument to LIS, should have procedure how to detect it and do the action. And if there is any report that need to be that being revised, and need to be amended and reviewed back. Yeah. So this is the criteria that need should be done. So it should be the result should be identified as revision, and the clinical should be informed, and time, date, and person ID that involved in the changes of the revised report should be noted in the revised report, and the original report need to maintain together with the revised one. Under clause 5.10, it stated describe more about the lab information system. So this is the diagram that show how the lab information system. Okay, when the doctor plug the patient, give treatment to the patient, maybe he want to check the patient, so it order the test of the patient and put the order into the lab information system. Then the doctor will take the sample from the patient and send to the lab. So when the lab receive the sample, this patient information can be accessed by the lab, and the information of the patient can go directly to the analyzer or instrument in the lab. So when then the analyze the patient sample will be analyzed in the using the analyzer or machine in the lab, and then the result will return to the lab information system. Yeah, the computer. And then when the result is ready in the lab information system, it can trace back by the doctor who ordered the test, or if the doctor is outside of the lab, it can also be viewed by the external lab of the doctor in the external lab. Oh, sorry. If we send the sample to the external lab, then when the report come back to the lab, we can put the result into the lab information system and still can be accessed to the doctor. So there shall be procedure and also SOP for result tracing, and authorities and responsible access for patient data and information, data entry and result entry, change information in result, and release result. And there should be procedure and SOP for supplier to validate the LIS and user to verify, and this activity need to be recorded and should have procedure on the confidential of the result. Data should be protected, but however still traceable, and what should mention about the environment operating, whether it is in the room temperature or maybe in the more cooler temperature, and how the result is maintained in the LIS system. Is it using server or any other apparatus? So from this, after I do this presentation, so can you think how many work need to be done if we want to implement the ISO 15819? How many procedure and SOP need to be built up, and how many records that need to be maintained within the lab? So actually it's not an easy job, but need to be done because especially example in Malaysia, for the lab diagnostic to run its activity, it need the uh, it need the ISO 15189 accreditation. So the QMS is good because it can build skill, knowledge, and endurance of the endurance of the employee, and also the management. It is difficult road, but difficult roads often lead to beautiful destination. So in order to implement the quality management system ISO 15189, it needs a good teamwork within the staff in the lab, and need good communication between the management and the employee. So with that, I end my presentation. With thank you.